Down Under has the top end, officially known as the Northern Territory and constituting the bulk of the Great Australian Outback. A conflict brewed in the Northern Territory between the native Australians, who had been there for more than 50,000 years, and the European settlers who began acquiring the land in the 19th century. It festered for nearly a century before compromise in 1975.
The British started settling Australia in 1787, beginning in the southeast. They arrived in Northern Territory half a century later. Today, the capital of Northern Territory is its northern town of Darwin, named after Charles Darwin in 1839 when HMS Beagle, famous for its former passenger, sailed into its harbor.
Subsequently, European explorers began to arrive in the Northern Territory over land routes. The Europeans met the Aboriginal people wherever they went. Alongside Hughes Avenue, the first road built by Europeans in Darwin, a plaque documents one such encounter.
Land grab was on. Aboriginals were fast losing their ancestral lands to newcomers. Our story pertains to an area in the heart of the Outback. This, the Gurindji country, is now in the Stewart electorate, and Mr. Scott McConnell represents it in the Parliament of Northern Territory. At his office in Alice Springs, he provides an overview of the electorate.
My electorate is about 1,000 miles, and that's about 390 miles. From this one, my electorate covers a fairly big area of the Northern Territory. In that whole area, there is only 5,000 adult people that vote. There's probably about 10,000 people in total, and they're all in these small towns. Now, we all believe that there's still people out there. So we strongly believe there's still people out there that have not had contact with white people yet. The Gurindji country is this country here, and this is all the country where Wave Hill, Victoria River Downs and Wave Hill, Campfield, all those places that feature in these stories are all right in this area here.
In 1911, the Vestey Group, run by William and Edmund Vestey, two brothers from Great Britain, leased 6,158 square miles of land in the northern part of Northern Territory. They were in the meat business and established a cattle raising station at Wave Hill.
Labor was provided by the natives, most belonging to the local Gurindji tribe and some to their neighbors the Mudburra and the Walpuri. Working conditions were terrible and wages minuscule.
The industrial industry that we see now in Central Australia, which is one of the biggest industries here other than tourism and extractive industries like mining, it's wholly dependent not just on Aboriginal people's land but their labour. What I find quite amazing is that not only did we not want to pay Indigenous people for their land, we were taking their land off them, but we also wouldn't even pay them for their labour.
Soft-spoken Walpuri elder Mr. Harry Jugamara Nelson was there at that time.
Well, the Aboriginal people in the early days were treated as you wouldn't believe it.
Folk singer Ted Egan described the Gurindji condition in this song.
Poor bugger me, Gurindji, my band set down this country, long time before the Lord Vestey, all about land belonging to we, our poor bugger me, Gurindji. Poor bugger black fella Gurindji, long time work, no wages we, work for the good old Lord Vestey, little bit flat, sugar and tea for the Gurindji from Lord Vestey, our poor bugger me.
Their lot was to change when a Gurindji elder led the Aboriginal workers off the Wave Hill homestead.
My name is Vincent Lingiari, came from Kaguragu, Waddy Creek Station.
I think he should really be respected as an incredible protector of Aboriginal people the world over.
Half a century of servitude ended when on the 23rd of August 1966, Vincent Lingiari led 200 Gurindji, Mudburra and Walpuri workers off the Wave Hill homestead. They were not asking for better conditions or better salary. They wanted their ancestral lands back.
They walked 9 miles to establish first camp in the dry bed of the Victoria River near what was then the Wave Hill Welfare Settlement and now the town of Gurindji. Many white Australians, workers' unions, and members of the press joined their cause.
6 months later, the strikers migrated another 4 miles to establish camp at Waddy Creek, adjoining the Dagaragu waterhole, a site sacred to the Gurindji. Their plan was to start their own mining, lease, and cattle station.
Many activists continued to join their struggle. One was the prominent journalist and author Frank Hardy. He helped write the sign at Waddy Creek that read, "Gurindji Mining Lease and Cattle Station."
Frank Hardy wrote several newspaper articles that brought national attention to the Gurindji case. His important book on the plight of Aboriginals, The Unlucky Australians, was completed in 1967 and published in 1968. In 1967, he helped the Gurindji draft a petition to the Governor-General Lord Casey. This requested release of about 8% of the Vesti lease back to the natives, on the same conditions given to the Vesti. The Governor-General's response was tardy and more of a rebuke than of any help.
This cold response helped gather public support for the Aboriginals and led to the 1967 referendum, which led to the first legislative reform for the Aboriginals, grant of new powers to the Commonwealth government to make laws for Aboriginal people in remote territories such as the Northern Territory. The Aboriginal struggle for land rights continued.
Harry would probably tell you how it sort of affected how people felt, especially as you were around that time too, eh?
I was around, it was a forefront.
Yeah, yep.
March,
Yeah.
rallies
Yeah.
here in Alice Springs, and sort of travel interstate to other cities, mainly to Adelaide and Canberra. Yes, and met with the other supporters who supported the land rights movement, and we, in my case, I'm quite satisfied with what we got back from the government.
9 years after the walk-off, on August 16, 1975, then Prime Minister Gough Whitlam transferred a lease for 1,250 square miles of land to the Gurindji. He also promised that this leasehold would soon be turned to freehold by the government. That promise proved to be an effort with many twists.
And Gough Whitlam was a Labor Prime Minister in the 1970s, and Gough Whitlam absolutely got understood the national view, and the national view was that they wanted protection for Indigenous land rights in the Northern Territory. He's probably now recognised as one of the most visionary Prime Ministers of Australia, but he's the only Prime Minister of Australia ever dismissed by the Governor-General, who's the representative of the Queen. Sir John Kerr. Yeah.
Sir John Kerr.
That's him, yep.
Horrible man.
Horrible man. So he, what we are all very grateful for was the legislation that was penned by him was passed by the next Conservative government, and that Prime Minister was a man called Malcolm Fraser, another quite good Prime Minister of Australia.
On December 16, 1976, Aboriginal Land Rights Northern Territory Act was passed. Nearly another decade was to pass before the Gurindji were granted freehold under this act. Vincent Lingiari's dream was finally realized on May 11, 1986, when the Gurindji were awarded freehold over much of their land.
I came down here to ask all this parliament here about the land right. What I got story from my old father or grandpa, that land belonged to me, belonged to Aboriginal men before the horse and the cattle come over on that land, why I'm sitting now. Well, that's what I've been keeping on my mind. Now, I still got it on my mind. That's all the word I can tell you.
Australia is a country of pristine landscapes and unique peoples. Conflicts occur everywhere between people, but examples of peaceful compromise are relatively few. Resolution is rarer still. The conflict described here could not have been solved with war in this land that evokes peace. Boomerangs are no match for bullets, but human minds can agree.
The events of the Waveville walk-off did not result in a complete resolution of conflict, but did lead to an admirable compromise whereby not just the Gurindji, but many other Aboriginals received land rights. An example is that of Uluru, an Australian landmark, which was finally transferred to the freehold of its Aboriginal owners on October 26, 1986.
Today, more than half a century after the walk-off, the spirit of the Gurindji lives on.
And old songs still linger in the wondrous Northern Territory.
Poor bugger black fella Gurindji, suppose we buy him back country. What you reckon for up a fee? Might be flat sugar and tea from the Gurindji to Lord Vesti, oh poor bugger me. Oh my you lawyer, oh sorry my country Gurindji.